September 8th, 1900. The sun rises over the wealthiest city in Texas. Electric streetcars glide down Broadway past Victorian mansions that rival anything in Boston or New York. At the port, cotton bales are stacked 3 stories high. Steamships from 4 continents crowd the harbor. This is Galveston, Texas, the Wall Street of the Southwest, the most prosperous city per capita in the United States. By sunset, 8,000 people will be dead, and the city itself will cease to exist. On this Saturday morning, children are heading to the beach. Families are making weekend plans. Couples are strolling through the streets. By nightfall, those children will drown in their mother's arms. Those shops will be splinters. Those mansions will be rubble. This is the story of the deadliest natural disaster in American history. Not because of a dam failure, not because warnings went unheard, because an entire city believed it was untouchable. Galveston, Texas, 1900. Population, 38,000. But calling it just another Gulf Coast town would be like calling Manhattan just another island. Galveston was America's success story. A barrier island transformed into an economic empire that minted millionaires out of cotton brokers and shipping magnates. More millionaires per square mile than New York. The 3rd busiest port in the nation. At the heart of this empire was the Strand, a bustling business district named after London's famous street that served as the financial center for the entire state. Millions of bales of cotton flowing to Europe every year through this single harbor. But the numbers only tell part of the story. This was a city with grand opera houses where European performers came to play. Victorian mansions with turrets and stained glass lined Broadway. Electric lights, running water, telephones. Modern conveniences most of America wouldn't see for another decade. On September 8, 1900, Galveston had more in common with Boston than with the rest of Texas. And its residents knew it. They were proud, confident, perhaps fatally confident. Because Galveston had a problem, one that everyone knew about, but nobody wanted to acknowledge. The city sat on a barrier island, a narrow strip of sand, 30 miles long, barely 3 miles wide at its broadest point. Between Galveston and the open Gulf of Mexico, nothing. No protective barrier islands, no reef system, just shallow water and sandbars. The highest point on the entire island? 8.7 feet above sea level. Look at it from above and the vulnerability is obvious. A sandbar in the Gulf, exposed, defenseless. But Galvestonians didn't see it that way. They had a theory. The shallow waters offshore, the sandbars, these would break up any hurricane before it could reach the island. The water wasn't deep enough for a serious storm surge, and they had an expert to back it up. In 1889, the U.S. Weather Bureau assigned Isaac Klein to head the Galveston station. Klein was a respected meteorologist, educated, professional, and in 1891, he published an article that Galvestonians quoted like scripture. The coast of Texas is immune from hurricanes. It would be impossible for any cyclone to create a storm wave which could materially injure the city. Immune. Impossible. Those 2 words would haunt Isaac Klein for the rest of his life. Late August, 1900. Off the coast of West Africa, a tropical disturbance forms over warm ocean waters. It's hurricane season. Storms form every year. Most dissipate or turn harmlessly out to sea. This one doesn't. It strengthens as it crosses the Atlantic. By the time it reaches the Caribbean, it's a fully formed hurricane. September 4th. The storm slams into Cuba. Winds over 100 miles per hour. Massive flooding. Hundreds dead. Cuban meteorologists are among the best tropical weather forecasters in the world. They've been tracking Caribbean hurricanes for decades. And they know immediately, this storm is different. More powerful. More organized. And it's heading north, straight for the Gulf of Mexico. They send urgent telegrams to Washington, to the U.S. Weather Bureau headquarters. The response from Washington? Dismissive. There's professional rivalry involved. Politics. The American Weather Bureau doesn't trust Cuban forecasts. They have their own models, and those models say the storm will curve east, out into the Atlantic, away from the Gulf. The Cuban warnings are filed away, ignored. The hurricane doesn't curve east. It enters the Gulf of Mexico on September 6th, and it's still strengthening. Friday, September 7th, the last normal day. Friday morning, Galveston, Texas. Isaac Klein arrives at his office in the Levy building, 4th floor. Windows overlooking the Gulf. He's seen the reports from Cuba. He knows there's a storm in the Gulf, but his instruments aren't showing anything alarming yet. The barometer is falling, concerning, but slowly. Not the dramatic plunge that signals an imminent hurricane. Still, something feels wrong. He walks to the beach. The Gulf is unusually rough. Large swells rolling in, the kind that come from a distant, powerful storm. But there's no hurricane warning from Washington. No official alert. And Klein has his own reputation to protect. His article declaring Galveston immune. If he sounds the alarm and nothing happens, he looks like a fool. He decides to wait, to watch, to gather more data. By Friday afternoon, the swells are bigger. The barometer is still falling. Klein is worried enough to take unofficial action. He goes door to door along the beachfront, warning residents personally. You should move to higher ground, just as a precaution. Some listen, most don't. They've lived through storms before, and the experts said Galveston was safe. Friday night, Isaac Klein goes home to his family. His pregnant wife, Cora, his 3 young daughters. He's uneasy, but he's not panicking. Saturday morning, dawn. Galvestonians wake to heavy rain and strengthening winds. But it's nothing they haven't seen before. And here's the thing. The waves are spectacular. 12, 15 feet high, crashing onto the shore with tremendous force. So many people actually head to the beach. By 9 in the morning, the wind is at 40, maybe 50 miles per hour. The rain is heavier, and the water is rising. Not just from the rain, the Gulf itself is rising. A storm surge pushing water onto the island from the south, but something else is happening on the north side. Galveston Bay is also flooding, water coming from both directions. By 10 o'clock, downtown streets are flooding, ankle deep, then knee deep. Businesses start closing. Families begin moving valuables to second floors. Some families try to leave, but most stay. Where would they go? They have homes, businesses, possessions. You don't abandon everything because of some wind and rain. By 11 o'clock, the bridges are underwater. Galveston is cut off, isolated, and the storm is just beginning. Isaac Klein finally understands. The barometer isn't just falling, it's in free fall. The wind is approaching 70 miles per hour. The water is 4 feet deep in the streets and rising fast. This isn't just a storm. This is the hurricane he said was impossible. He rushes to send warnings, but the telegraph lines are already down. No communication with the mainland. No way to call for help. And even if he could, what could anyone do? By noon, the wind is screaming at 90 miles per hour. Storm surge is 6 feet above normal, and it's still rising. Galveston's highest point is 8.7 feet above sea level. Do the math. 3 p.m. The horror begins. Wind speed, 120 miles per hour. Storm surge, 12 feet above normal. Every building on Galveston Island is surrounded by water. In some areas, the water is 15 feet deep, and the hurricane is still intensifying. The wooden houses near the beach go first. They don't fall slowly, they explode. The wind tears them apart in seconds. Walls ripped away, roofs launched into the air, entire structures disintegrating into thousands of pieces of lumber. And those pieces become weapons. 20-foot timbers traveling at 60 miles per hour, railroad ties, sheets of metal roofing spinning like blades. By 5 o'clock, something new is happening, something no one anticipated. As the buildings near the beach collapse, the storm surge pushes the wreckage in one direction, north, inland, and it's accumulating. Imagine a wave, but instead of water, it's wreckage. Thousands of destroyed houses compressed together by the storm surge into a solid wall, 20 feet high, miles wide, moving across the island like a slow-motion avalanche. This wall of debris weighs millions of tons. Buildings that might have survived the wind, that might have withstood the flooding, brick houses, stone churches, are crushed when the wall hits them. And caught in that debris, tumbling through the wreckage, are people, hundreds, thousands. At the St. Mary's Orphan Asylum near the beach, 10 nuns are caring for 93 orphaned children. When the water started rising, they moved the children upstairs. When the second floor flooded, they moved to the attic. Now the building is breaking apart. The nuns know what's coming. But maybe, if the children are tied together, their bodies will be found. Maybe they can be identified, given a proper burial. Sister Elizabeth Ryan takes clothesline and begins tying the children together, waist to waist. A human chain. The youngest are crying. The older ones understand what this means. The nuns tie themselves to the children, and then the building collapses. Of 93 children, 3 survive. 90 die, along with most of the nuns, still tied together. When they're found the next morning, they're still bound by the clothesline, a chain of small bodies on the beach. Klein is in his house with his wife, his daughters, his brother Joseph, and about 50 neighbors. The house is large, solid, 2 stories of good lumber, but nothing is solid enough for this. By 6 o'clock, the water inside is chest deep. The wind is shaking the walls. Outside, a railroad trestle more than 1,000 feet long has broken free from its moorings. Klein can hear it, a rhythmic, heavy grinding like continuous thunder. The trestle, acting as a massive battering ram, smashes directly into the side of the house. Klein pulls his 3 daughters close, Allie Mae, Rosemary, and Esther. His wife Cora is beside him, 8 months pregnant. The house detonates. Walls explode outward. The roof lifts away. Water, wood, bodies, darkness. Everything becomes chaos. Klein finds himself underwater, tangled in debris. He fights to the surface, still clutching his daughters. All 3 alive. His brother Joseph surfaces nearby, but Cora is gone. He screams her name into the wind. Nothing, just debris and water and the roar of the storm. For nearly a month, her fate remained a mystery. 7 p.m. to 8 p.m., the worst hour. Wind speed, 145 miles per hour. Category 4. Storm surge, 20 feet above normal at its peak. The highest point on Galveston Island is 8.7 feet. The entire island is underwater. In the total darkness, no electricity, no light except lightning, people cling to debris, to rooftops, to each other. Parents hold their children above the water as long as their strength lasts. When it gives out, they tie the children to their own bodies with rope, with clothesline, with torn fabric. If they die, at least they die together. Some are found that way the next morning, parents with children still tied to them, still holding them. At Lucas Terrace, 4 stories of brick and iron, hundreds of people have taken shelter. The building holds. Every person inside survives. 2 blocks away, every person dies. Survival is random, arbitrary, meaningless. The wind howls for hours. No rescue is coming. The survivors simply endure, minute by minute, hour by hour, praying for dawn. By midnight, the wind begins to ease. By 2 in the morning, the storm surge starts to recede. By dawn, the hurricane is gone, and so is Galveston. September 9th, 1900, Sunday morning, dawn. The wind has stopped, the water is receding, the sky is clearing, and Galveston no longer exists. From above, the island looks like it's been bombed. Entire neighborhoods aren't damaged, they're gone. Where there were streets lined with Victorian mansions, there are empty foundations. Where there were churches and schools, nothing but debris. 3,600 homes destroyed, out of 5,000 total. Every single building on the island damaged. But the buildings don't matter, not really. It's the bodies. They're everywhere, floating in the receding water, hanging from debris, buried in wreckage, piled against anything still standing. On the beach, arranged by the tide like driftwood. Children, women, men, entire families still holding each other. 6,000 dead, that's the conservative estimate. 8,000 is more realistic. Some estimates reach 12,000. Nobody knows the exact number. Nobody ever will. Because entire families were wiped out with no one left to report them missing. Whole neighborhoods vanished without a single survivor to count the dead. The survivors wake to a nightmare. No food, no clean water, no shelter for most. The September heat is already building. And the smell. Thousands of bodies decomposing in the Gulf Coast humidity. Inescapable. Disease will come next. Cholera, typhoid, dysentery. If they don't dispose of the bodies, the epidemic will kill thousands more. But there are no coffins for 8,000 people, no cemetery space, no time for proper burials. They make a desperate decision. Load the bodies onto barges, Take them 18 miles into the Gulf, weight them with rubble, commit them to the sea. Work crews begin the horrific task. The bodies are already decomposing, bloated, coming apart. Workers tie handkerchiefs over their faces. Some are given whiskey. It doesn't help much. By Monday, hundreds of bodies have been dumped at sea. By Tuesday morning, they're washing back to shore. The Gulf currents bring them back. The weights weren't heavy enough. The decomposition gases made the bodies buoyant. It doesn't matter why, they're coming back. The authorities realize they have no choice. They're going to have to burn them. For 6 weeks, funeral pyres burn across Galveston Island. Work crews, some volunteer, many forced at gunpoint, stack bodies in piles of 30 or 40 at a time. They pour kerosene over them, and they burn. The smoke hangs over Galveston in a permanent haze, visible from the mainland. At night, the fires glow across the island. The workers rotate in shifts. No one can do it for more than a few hours. They're given whiskey constantly. Some drink themselves into stupors just to keep functioning. Many will never recover. Martial law is declared. Looters are shot on sight. No one can leave without permission. Galveston is quarantined, a prison, a mass grave, and a crematorium all at once. By early October, most of the bodies have been burned, but the smell lingers, the trauma lingers. Galveston will never be the same. When news finally reaches the mainland, telegraph lines restored, reporters arriving by boat, America responds with an outpouring of aid. Money pours in from every state, from Europe, from around the world. President McKinley asks Congress for emergency appropriations. Supplies arrive by the trainload. Total aid reaches nearly $4 million, roughly $120 million in today's money. One of the largest relief efforts in American history to that point. Clara Barton arrives in mid-September. She's 78 years old, the founder of the American Red Cross, a veteran of the Civil War who earned the name Angel of the Battlefield. She'd seen Antietam. She'd seen Johnstown after the flood. But Galveston shocks even her. She stays for nearly a year. Her volunteers set up hospitals, distribute food and clothing, and hand out thousands of strawberry plants, a crop that grows quickly in sandy soil, providing income for families who've lost everything. But all the aid in the world can't bring back the dead. And it can't answer the question everyone is asking. What now? Should Galveston be abandoned? Should the survivors relocate inland? Or should they rebuild on the same vulnerable sandbar that killed 8,000 people? The people of Galveston make a decision. They're staying. But they're not just rebuilding. They're going to make sure this never happens again. In 1902, Galveston begins the most ambitious civil engineering project in American history. 2 projects, actually, each one seemingly impossible. First, a seawall. Not a small wall, a massive concrete barrier, 17 feet high, 16 feet thick at the base, eventually stretching 10 miles along the Gulf shore. Engineers study seawalls around the world. They consult Dutch experts, a nation that's been holding back the sea for centuries. The design features a curved face to deflect wave energy and a foundation driven deep into the sand. But the wall alone isn't enough. Because Galveston is still a low-lying island, the highest point is still less than 9 feet above sea level. So they decide to do something that sounds insane. They're going to raise the entire city, lift every building, jack them up on stilts, then pump millions of cubic yards of sand underneath to raise the grade of the island, in some areas by 17 feet. Over 2,100 buildings, homes, churches, schools, businesses, including a 3,000-ton cathedral. For 7 years, the entire city is a construction site. Residents live in their homes while they're perched on stilts, 15 feet in the air. They climb ladders to their front doors, walk on temporary bridges between buildings. Children play on sand dunes that will become streets. It's dangerous. Workers die. Buildings occasionally collapse. But they keep going. By 1910, the project is complete. Galveston is raised, protected behind its seawall. And the engineering works. Hurricane Carla in 1961 winds over 140 miles per hour. The seawall holds. Hurricane Alicia in 1983, direct hit. The seawall holds. Hurricane Ike in 2008, 20-foot storm surge. The seawall holds, though water comes over the top in places. The engineering saved countless lives. but it couldn't save Galveston's soul. The Great Storm killed 8,000 people, but it also killed Galveston's future. The city rebuilt. The population recovered. By 1920, it was home to 40,000 people again, but it was no longer the economic powerhouse it had been. Investors were spooked. Insurance rates skyrocketed. Shipping companies looked elsewhere. And 50 miles inland, Houston, Galveston's little sister, always smaller, less important, less wealthy, was growing. Houston was safe from hurricanes, and Houston was ambitious. But ambition wasn't the only thing Houston had. In 1901, just months after the storm, a massive oil gusher called Spindletop was discovered nearby. This oil boom flooded the region with unprecedented capital. It gave Houston the financial muscle and the immediate urgency to bypass the vulnerable island and fund the construction of its own deep-water ship channel. In 1914, Houston completed the Houston Ship Channel, a 50-mile waterway dredged deep enough for ocean-going vessels. The shipping business that had made Galveston rich began migrating north. The cotton brokers followed, then the banks, then the wealthy families. By 1920, Houston's population was 3 times Galveston's. By 1930, Houston was the dominant city in Texas. The Wall Street of the Southwest became a beach resort town. The New York of the South became a footnote. The Weather Bureau, later the National Weather Service, overhauled its systems for tracking hurricanes, issuing warnings, evacuating coastal populations. Isaac Klein spent the rest of his life working to improve hurricane prediction. He became one of the nation's leading experts on tropical storms. He never forgave himself for his 1891 article, for declaring Galveston immune, for the warnings he didn't give, and for Cora, whose body was finally pulled from the wreckage nearly a month later, at the exact spot where the rest of the family had washed ashore. The seawall became a model for coastal protection across the country. The grade raising demonstrated that engineering could protect against natural disasters, if you were willing to pay the price. But perhaps the most important legacy is the simplest. Remember what hubris costs. Today, if you walk along the Galveston seawall, you'll see tourists and fishermen, kids on bikes, couples watching the sunset. The Gulf is beautiful, peaceful, easy to forget what it's capable of. But scattered across the island are markers, historical plaques, small memorials. In the old city cemetery, mass graves hold hundreds of victims. Simple markers, names long forgotten. September 8, 1900, the day 8,000 people learned that nature doesn't negotiate. The day the finest city in Texas was erased. The deadliest natural disaster in United States history. Remember Galveston. Remember what the sea can do. And remember that it can do it again.